This is the Shaw Report with Damian Banks.
Hello.
What's happening? What's up? What's going on? It's the Shaw Report, and I am Damian Banks. Shaw Bears fans and alum, rejoice. You now have your very own podcast hosted by moi, Damian Banks. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Sports by Damian. That's SportsByDamion. And Shaw U Athletics are also on social media. Follow the Bears on Twitter at Shaw Bears. Also, we're on Instagram at SU_Bears. And you can like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Bears. Another week is upon us. I hope you guys had a great and fantastic last week. I did myself. I am broadcasting to you from beautiful Banks Boy Studios right here in Durham, North Carolina. And I'm having a pretty good night, pretty good day. Aside from this nagging sinus infection that I have, if you hear it in my voice, I apologize profusely. If you don't hear it, I'm doing a great job of faking it until I make it. But I digress. This is the Shaw Report again. Fantastic third episode of the Shaw Report. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy that you're kicking it with your boy. The podcast is going to do numbers, bruh. I'm trying to tell you. But I digress once again. The show is jam-packed. On this episode, we're going to talk about the Shaw Bears football team. They had a close loss at Johnson C. Smith this past weekend. We're also going to interview a head coach at Shaw, the head coach of the men's and women's cross-country team, as well as the women's outdoor track and field team, Nadia Alexander Pompey. I'm going to give you the Shaw Bears scoreboard, and we're going to end the podcast with the C.I.A.A scoreboard. So without further ado, let's go ahead and do it. Let's do it. All right, man, we got to start with football. It's football season. We're in the throes of football season, and head coach Adrian Jones and his Shaw Bears, they were coming off a big home win last weekend, 2 weeks ago, rather, against Livingstone. They were on the road at Johnson C. Smith in the Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, it was homecoming for Johnson C. Smith, so you know they were fired up. They were lit. The Golden Bulls, you know, it's homecoming. You don't want to lose your homecoming. I remember when I was in college, full disclosure, I said it on the previous podcast. I went to Virginia State University, and yeah, you know, I'm a proud Trojan. But I'm giving you this podcast. I'm giving you my all. Anyway, I digress once again. You know, homecomings at HBCUs, you don't want to lose that game. So Johnson C. Smith welcomed Shaw in for homecoming. And for a lot of the afternoon, it looked like Shaw was going to spoil Johnson C. Smith's homecoming. Now, the Bears led 3-0 after one quarter, courtesy of a 33-yard Benny Kinsemi field goal. Benny Kinsemi is from Charlotte, so you know they had to feel good, him knocking that field goal through. And the Bears also led 10-3 at halftime, courtesy of a 1-yard Darren Downing touchdown run. So if you're a Shaw Bears fan, if you're a Shaw Bears alum, if you're head coach Adrian Jones and staff, you're feeling pretty good about yourself at halftime. You're up 10-3. The defense is playing well, and you really feel like you have an opportunity to go on the road and do something that you haven't done, which is win a road conference game. Third quarter, scoreless for both teams. No team could really get anything going in that third quarter, and it all came down to that fourth quarter. Johnson C. Smith, I don't know what happened. I don't know if they turned the light on. Maybe they just didn't want to win. They didn't want to lose homecoming. The Golden Bulls scored 10 fourth quarter points. Bears defense played well throughout, led by sophomore tackling machine Devin Hunt, who had 12 tackles and 2.5 tackles for loss. But that fourth quarter came back to bite the Bears in the butt. Say that 3 times over. I said the fourth quarter came back to bite the Bears in the butt. Now, the offense didn't do much in the second half. Actually, they didn't score a point in the second half, but the defense played well enough where you can win this game. But the fourth quarter, they gave up 10 points in the fourth quarter, and a last-second field goal by Johnson C. Smith helped them prevail by the 13-10 score. Now, defensively, again, the Bears were led by Devin Hunt, 12 tackles, 2.5 for loss. Freshman Jaleel Scoggins had 9 tackles and an interception. Sophomore Caleb Barfield had 6 tackles and an interception. And senior Andrew Cash had 6 tackles and a forced fumble. Now, it was a breakthrough game last week for the offense for the Shaw Bears when Darren Downing, passed for 2 touchdowns. But this game seemed like they regressed. Downing only passed for 83 yards and a late interception, and that pretty much sealed Shaw's fate. Now, the running game was pretty good this week for Shaw, as usual. It was led by Uriah Bethea. He had 83 yards. Darren Downing also had a 1-yard touchdown run, and the Bears rushed for 208 yards as a team. But it was another late heartbreaking loss, similar to that late field goal loss at Fayetteville State. And the Shaw Bears, they should learn from this. They should put this in their memory bank. It may not help them this season, may not help these guys until next season, but they have to learn how to win on the road. If you don't win on the road, you have to win some of the games on the road in the conference, if not all of them. You want to go undefeated, of course, but you have to go on the road and win some of these games, especially games against teams like Johnson C. Smith. Not to take anything away from the Golden Bulls, but they were winless going into this game. So if you were the Shaw Bears, you want to win this game. You have to win that game at Fayetteville State, but, it was a close loss to a good Fayetteville State team. But with this game at Johnson C. Smith, you got to win this game. You got to find a way to win this game. You can't give up 10 fourth quarter points, and you can't have costly penalties in the fourth quarter that allows Johnson C. Smith to get into field goal range to kick that game winner. But they'll learn from this, they being the Shaw Bears. On to the next week. You got to stay healthy. You have to stay focused. If you're head coach Adrian Jones, what do you say to your team going into the next week's game? You tell them, remain focused, remain together. Don't let anyone break you up as a family. And you have to move on. This loss will hurt. It will linger if you let it. You can't let the Johnson C. Smith loss turn into another loss. And they have a road game again this upcoming week at Winston-Salem State. And Winston-Salem State is playing pretty good football right now. You don't want them to turn one loss into 2. Winston-Salem State rushed for like 300 yards in their last contest. So you have to come into that game. You have to play well. Winston-Salem State is not going to go easy on you if you're the Shaw Bears. And you have to make that road trip. You got to be focused and try to come out of Winston-Salem with a win. That remains to be seen if they can do it. I know that head coach Adrian Jones and his staff is trying to get the guys fully prepared for this week's road trip to Winston. And this week is just going to be a week of getting everyone healthy, a week of studying film, a week of trying to implement a game plan to beat Winston-Salem State, because you're still in it. Now, you are 2-3 in the Southern Division, but if you win the rest of your games, things can happen. Teams lose. You got a tough road game at Winston-Salem State. Then you have St. Aug's after that, and then you have a road game with Northern Division beast, Virginia State University. So it's a tough road ahead for the Shaw Bears, but you got to believe. You got to think that you can do it. Because if you don't believe in yourselves, then no one will believe in you. So we move on to next week. Got a tough road game at Winston, like I said before. Coach Jones, I wish you luck with this week's practice and preparation, getting ready for the Winston-Salem State Rams. But we're going to take this commercial break. This show, I told you, is jam-packed. After the break, we're going to welcome our guest for the Shaw Report this week, head coach Nadia Alexander Pompey of the men's, women's cross-country team, as well as the outdoor women's track team. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Hey, Shaw Bears fans. Refresh your game day experience with the new and improved real Coca-Cola taste of Coca-Cola Zero Sugar, with 0 calories and 0 sugar. It's college sports' newest tradition. Grab an ice-cold Coca-Cola Zero Sugar and taste the feeling. Coca-Cola is a proud sponsor of Shaw University Athletics. This is the Shaw Report with Damian Banks.
I'm feeling it, feel the passion, it's out of my way. Feel the legs pushing up I'm feeling it. Feel the high that you get from the line. If you feel it, raise your hell in the sky.
Welcome back to the Shaw Report. I am your host, Damian Banks. Again, follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Sports by Damian. You can also go to the website, shawbears.com. Download this podcast. Download anything you need to know about Shaw Bears athletics on shawbears.com. And without further ado, our guest. She is entering her second season at the helm for the women's cross country, men's cross country, as well as women's track team at Shaw University. Head coach Nadia Alexander Pompey. Coach Pompey, thank you for joining the Shaw Report.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
Now, Coach, you are entering your second season, so you haven't been with Shaw that long. So for those Shaw alum who may not know, tell us a little bit about your background in both track and field and cross country.
Well, I'm actually going into my 7th season as a track and field coach in the C.I.A.A. I did 1 year at high school prior to coming to the C.I.A.A. Been involved in track and field ever since I can remember myself. I did cross country while we were at Lincoln University, transitioning from one head coach to the next, that year when Lincoln won their very first ever C.I.A.A. championship. And primarily a thrower. I went to Louisiana Tech University in Ruston, Louisiana, where I was a thrower. I still hold the indoor and outdoor shot put records. I've represented my country numerous times on the international level. So, just always surrounded by track and field and have a great love for the sport.
Your background is pretty extensive, collegiately as well as professionally. Now, do you find that experience helpful as you start your coaching career at Shaw University?
Yes, I find it extremely helpful. I tell a lot of people, I've been around some of the best in the sport. When I was a junior in Jamaica, meaning competing at the under 20 level, I had the fortune of being on the Carissa team with, the great Usain Bolt, where he broke that under 20 200-meter world record. I've rubbed shoulders in competitions with, I think she was the runner-up at the last Olympics, but she's won numerous Olympic and world titles, as in Valerie Adams in the shot put. So being on these teams, I get to see firsthand, what it takes to get to that level. You get to watch them as they practice, people from different countries going to the Commonwealth Games. I was able to see what some of the Kenyan distance runners do, like, wake up at the crack of dawn and start running. So I like to relate to that experience. And from that experience, I was able to connect with other people in the track and field world in terms of coaches and some athletes who I reach out to this day for advice when I'm doing something. Am I doing it right? Should I adjust it? Am I crazy? Am I expecting too much? So I rely on that experience a lot.
And we are on the line with head coach Nadia Alexander Pompey of Shaw University. Now, Coach Pompey, you threw out a lot of heavy names right there. Usain Bolt, to name one. So you've had extensive experience both collegially and internationally. Now you're at Shaw University. Your plate is pretty full. You're the head coach for the men's and women's cross country, as well as the women's track and field. How do you balance all those responsibilities and not pull your hair out?
It's pretty much time management. You just have to make sure you stay on top of the goals, and I find myself not waiting until deadlines or close to the deadlines to get stuff done in terms of the paperwork. As soon as they request the paperwork, I try to get it out then and there, because I know myself, I will forget and I will miss that deadline. But I have the help of one of my colleagues from high school who competed with me in track and field while I was in high school, who, he helps me with some of the running events. But it's pretty hard to be the only person there all day, every day, but it's time management. You have no other choice, so somebody's got to do it, and, I chose this life, so I just have to get it done.
Exactly. Again, Coach, thank you for joining me. I have